What are tax lien certificates? What on earth is that? Well, tax lien certificates are you essentially stepping into the shoes of the government, collecting huge interest rates and penalties from people who have fallen behind on their real estate taxes. Now, that may sound mean. You say, why am I going to collect huge money from these people? So the interest rate and penalties are set by the government. That's not something that's negotiable. It's not even something you ever have a discussion about, because as a tax lien certificate holder, you're never talking to a property owner or homeowner. They're talking to the government if they're talking to anybody. So the way that it works is that someone doesn't pay their taxes, and then because the local governments need to collect the money, they got to pay the police, the firefighter, the mayor, the school teachers, all these things that counties and local governments pay for. So they need that money. So what some of them will do is they'll auction off a certificate, which essentially just gives the person they auction the certificate off to the right to collect the taxes that are past due plus interest and penalties. And the way that's physically done is the person pays the government the money, and then the government forwards the money to you. So they're never talking directly to you. They're never like showing up at your house. They're never doing anything like that. They're just dealing with the government. And the government sets the rates, and they're not negotiable. So when you hold the tax lien certificate, you're doing some good because you're helping the county government and the local government be able to pay its bills. Again, filling potholes, collecting trash, paying the mayor, paying the firefighters, paying the police, all that stuff that has to be paid. And to some degree, I suppose, it's helpful to the homeowner because the homeowner gets some time to pay that otherwise maybe they wouldn't have, because if the government's under that much pressure to collect money, then they might just auction off the house right away. So what happens is you get the tax lien certificate, and these interest rates can be as high as 36%. They have penalties as high as 25%. And in one state, there are penalties that are 25% at day one as soon as you buy the certificate, another 25% if they don't pay it within 6 months. That equals 50%. So if you had a tax lien that was a $10,000 tax lien for unpaid taxes, the day that you buy that tax lien, if they pay the taxes the next day, they have to pay $12,500 because of the $10,000 owed in taxes plus 25%. If they hadn't paid within 6 months, there's another 25% tacked on. So then they'd have to pay you $15,000. So it'd be $10,000 plus an initial 25% penalty, then another 25% penalty. So these things can really add up. And like I said, interest rates as high as 36%, penalties as high as 25% twice a year. So it can be a very good investment. Now, this is not typically a way to acquire real estate, although there are a few states, like Illinois, for example, which if someone doesn't pay the tax lien off, then the state just gives the property to the holder of the tax lien certificate. That's the way it is right now. There are some changes going on legally that I'm not sure, but it appears to me that they're going to do away with those systems and make it all the system that I was first talking about, which is you get the tax lien certificate and you get the interest and penalties, you don't get the property. Now the question is, what happens if someone doesn't pay off the tax lien certificate? So here's where it can get interesting, if nothing else. In most states, the government will force the property to be sold at a public auction. So those are called tax deed sales, and at the tax deed sale, the successful bidder who raises their hand and gets the high bid, they then get the property. And there can be some great bargains at those tax deed sales. You get property typically, in most places, between 70 and 80% of value. So if you're talking about a $400,000 house, you're probably buying it for $320,000 or so, minus whatever the perceived fix-up costs are. So it can be a really good deal. If you're talking about a $400,000 house, you pick it up for $320,000, that is a great deal. But that is not necessarily simple business, because what happens with those sales is that all the people who didn't pay off their taxes, either if it's a tax lien certificate they didn't pay off, or in states that don't sell tax lien certificates if they just never paid the taxes, those properties are listed for sale. And then what happens is people scramble and they make payment arrangements, they borrow money, they pay the taxes. But some properties are sold and there are some absolutely amazing bargains at those sales, some killer bargains. And those are sales that can be very good, but that's not really the tax lien certificate business. That's just the way that your tax lien will be paid off, because it's really secured by the value in the property. So if you have a tax lien certificate for 1 year's worth of taxes, that's probably 2% of the value of the property. So if the person doesn't pay and the property goes to tax deed auction, unless it's a completely no value property, it's going to sell for enough to pay your tax lien off plus the interest. Now, the ones that don't do that are ones that are useless little pieces of land. All tax sales have these, so you have to be careful if you're in the tax deed auction business, and even if you're a tax lien business. You want to make sure you're buying a lien or buying a property that is a good property. There are times when there's like a surveyor's error. Like let's say you have a cul-de-sac, and when the surveyor surveys the property, they don't do the legal descriptions correctly, so there's a little gap. It could be just a little pie-shaped gap. It could be just a little strip of land that's, a foot wide or something. That actually will go to tax sale eventually, believe it or not. I know it seems weird, but it will go to tax sale. And they'll auction it off, and they don't tell you whether it's a useful property or not. That's up to you doing your due diligence. So when you're buying tax lien certificates or properties at tax deed sale, you need to make sure that you evaluate whether that's a valuable property or not. You don't want a tax lien certificate against a property that's a little useless strip of land, because no one's going to buy it at a tax deed sale. So those are the things you need to be careful of. So what you want to do is get yourself good training, and I'll cover that in a minute, but I also wanted to alert you to one other thing. There's a really neat opportunity to buy properties and to buy tax liens without going to auctions. And I have a friend of mine who teaches that, who's been doing this since the early 1990s, and this guy is the master at this business. And I recorded an interview with him that I know you're going to love. It was probably a 20-minute interview, and he really gets in depth to how he found this little special niche to buy tax deed properties with no competition and to buy tax lien certificates with no competition, where you can just kind of casually look at lists of ones that are available, pick the best ones. You have plenty of time to weed out the ones that are little strips of land and things like that. It is really the best system, because what I don't like about tax lien auctions and tax deed auctions generally is you're under time pressure. The auction is coming up. You have a bunch of properties to do due diligence on to check out that they're not useless properties, and not enough time to do it. And a lot of the people will pay their taxes in the end, so the property will never get sold. So that's what I don't like. And my friend Tony has figured it out. He's figured out how you get all the time in the world, just look over the list and invest in what you want. So definitely check out the video. See a link up above my shoulder if your browser supports the links, or down below. Go watch my interview with Tony, because this guy is a ninja master. And I did tax deed sales for a long time, and I wish I had known Tony's system back then. Of course, I started before Tony in 1989, so I couldn't have known his system because he invented it. But today what I would tell you is his system is absolutely the best to go. So go check out the interview with my friend Tony. That'll open your eyes to this amazing opportunity, and hopefully you can get involved and make great money at tax lien sales and tax deed auctions. The money's there to be made, especially in the tax liens. But go follow my friend Tony, and you will have a much better chance of success. So this is Attorney Bob Diamond. If you like this, give it a thumbs up. If you want more videos like this and talking about tax liens and tax deed sales, the thumbs up will help me know that you want more like this. And subscribe to the channel, because then you'll get noticed when a new video goes up. So Attorney Bob Diamond, over and out for now.